with. I am an artist, and if you happen to be an artist, you know how hard it can be to call yourself that. But I cannot deny the pull to be creative. It is an insidious urge that even when I have tried to ignore it, it just would not leave me alone. And I say insidious, but I mean it in the best way. It calls my attention. I feel disconnected to the spirit within me when I don't feed that part of myself. Being creative is a part of me, and it is me. I happen to believe that we are all creatives, even if we're not artists. I am Argentinian. I love that part of myself. I love my indigenous roots, my Italian roots, my Spaniard roots. I also spent significant time in my life, in my youth, living in Brazil, just outside of Rio. And those two facts, along with immigrating to the United States with my family when I was 11 years old, have all shaped me in very intricate ways. I want you to know what makes me human. I am an empath. I'm a highly sensitive person who feels things deeply. I'm quiet. My sensitivity makes me very introspective and truly melancholic at times. And yet I love a good laugh. I love to joke around, and I'm a bit sarcastic. I also love nature, the trees, the mountains that remind me of the Andes in Argentina, where I grew up. The ocean. One of my favorite things to do is to float in the ocean, preferably in Trinidad and Tobago, where my husband is from. These are some of what makes me who I am. And for a long time, I wondered what an immigrant from Argentina in the US who struggled with many common immigrant issues could do. What could I contribute that was meaningful to me? And that answer came at the hands of a breast cancer diagnosis. I'm not my cancer experience or my diagnosis, but learning to overcome this diagnosis has shaped me and transformed me in the deepest of ways. And it is the thing that possibly makes me the most qualified to speak to you today. I am a patient. For the past 10 years, I have been a patient. I have undergone chemotherapy that was months long and one that lasted for an entire year. I have had a double mastectomy. I have had months of radiation. I've had countless surgeries, procedures, tests, follow-ups, preventative measures, and have taken medications. All these experiences changed me and transformed me, and it truly was and has been a very painful experience. I'd like to share some of that experience with you, but I want to also give a stipulation that this is just my experience. Whatever someone else has experienced is real and valid, but I can only speak for myself. My children were 5 and 7 years old at the time of my diagnosis. And at first, I was just focused on surviving. I truly didn't care what the doctors had to do. I didn't care if I lost my hair to chemo or have an amputation, as I like to refer to the mastectomy. All I cared about was surviving and getting to look at those two little humans who have one mom. No one else in this world could be their mom, and to be here for my love, my husband. My surgeon, oncologists, nurses, and technicians had one job, and that was to get rid of the cancer and do all that was possible so that I could be here 10 years later and beyond. And I'm so thankful to them and the ways that they and medicine helped me. At that time, I hoped that they would know and see that behind me were my husband and children, who I wanted to desperately be around for. I hoped that they would treat me as their own wife or their mother or daughter or sister, and that they would see me, who I am. But if we are honest, many of our healthcare systems are not designed with this in mind to help the whole person, at least not here in the United States. We have some good examples, but overall, there's a lot of growing that we need to do. Often, our healthcare systems are cold, sterile places that induce anxiety or worse. I had my very first panic attack ever in my life, walking down the hall of my local hospital where I was picking up my scans. The walls started to close in, and by the time I reached the desk, I could not breathe, and the room was spinning. But what if we became curious about how the arts and creativity could be an integral part of our healthcare solutions? What could be possible if the aesthetics of our hospitals and clinics represented our cultures better? What if they were peaceful places that invited in nature? What if while we sit during chemo, we're invited to be creative? What if there are public areas to create? There were many times during my treatments that I would spend half a day at my cancer center, first getting tests done, seeing my oncologist or another specialist, going from appointment to appointment, sitting in uncomfortable waiting areas with nothing but TVs glaring. Most of the times they were overcrowded. It would have made such a difference to have a quiet corner or a place I could read, write, or draw. And to be honest, I was privileged enough to buy art supplies for myself, but what if we provided that for patients? We know that the cost of treatment is astronomical for many diseases. Our experiences here in the US is that patients are riddled with debt for many years to be able to receive life-saving treatments. What if there was music playing, or images of nature instead of bad news on the TVs? What if there were art galleries to invite patients to take a stroll and interact with artworks? What if we displayed poems for people to read as they were waiting? What if we trained artists in best practices for working in health spaces? What if we developed code of ethics to be able to invite them into the hospitals? Surviving is good, and I recognize that I'm here today because of the many privileges that I have, having been treated here in the US. And I am very thankful to be here today. But the questions still remain. What if our healthcare systems not only considered what could aid patients in surviving, which we all agree is good, but also in thriving, in overcoming, in growing? To be very honest, after my treatments were finished, I could not get away from the cancer world fast enough. I felt like that was a place where I lost my humanity, where I lost what made me, me. At that time, what was offered as a way of recuperating afterwards for survivors were support groups. And I tried joining 2 groups, and even therapy was good for a time. Support groups can be helpful, and therapy helped me to process. And yet I found that I needed to do something with my hands, with my body. I needed somatic activities. I had been using drawing and writing all throughout my treatments as a form of self-expression. I started drawing patterns after reading that it helped the mind to relax. I used visualization after reading a study that proved to have good results for cancer patients. I took many walks during that time as well, spending time in nature. I found that not talking but expressing through doing helped me go from surviving to recovering. I started looking for creative outlets for myself and found a renewed will to gain myself back. Not the same as I was before cancer, but to find a new normal, one that accepted what I had been through and grew from it. I have since read a lot about post-traumatic growth, and I would say that that is what best describes my experience after cancer. I believe the arts and creativity helps us to express our humanity. It helps us to process our experiences and emotions in ways that talking is lacking. When we invite creativity into our lives, we invite play and access subconscious parts of ourselves that help us to heal and to thrive. So that brings me to what I do. And honestly, what I do, I feel like I do one of the most magical things. And I'm grateful that I get to do it. There's a quote that I love from Howard Thurman that says, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." After 3 years, about 3 years after my initial diagnosis, I developed the program Healing Through the Arts with a clear focus on serving cancer patients and cancer survivors by removing barriers to using creativity as a viable way to heal and to deal with the stressors that come through treatments and survivorship. The program has always been free to the participants and organizations that I partner with, and it provides all the art supplies as well as the instructor. I innovated a way to fund these art workshops by developing a fiscal partnership with the Delaware Art Museum, my local museum. My path led me to make this work possible through an arts institution. But I think and I know that it is possible to create similar programs partnering with hospitals and clinics. I knew that many others could benefit, not just cancer patients, but many others could benefit from the arts for well-being. And my partnership made it possible to acquire funding to expand to community centers embedded in communities of historically marginalized populations, to veterans, to organizations working in the mental health space, to youth experiencing grief, and to after-school programs. We also facilitate art workshops in Spanish, something that I'm very proud of, and we do so to a support group of breastfeeding mothers, a group for older adults who lives in a facility, and to an after-school program in a predominantly Latino community. And we also have an international group that is in Spanish that meets at a hall that's embedded in a Latino community. Healing Through the Arts stands out for its innovative and creative approach. It offers a variety of art modalities, including watercolor, journaling, collage, painting, clay, grief drumming, drawing, looking and reflecting gallery tours, studio visits to working artists, and Zen Tango, that's a meditative method of drawing patterns. The aim is to present creativity in as many forms as possible, as a possible way to leverage art to foster healing and improve health outcomes. I accomplish this by using a collaborative approach and a commitment to serve diverse communities. So I ask, what if artists and creative business owners were included in the healthcare systems? What innovative solutions could we come up with? I'm sure during this wonderful events and talks that you will hear from experts who can present the data and proof of why the arts are an integral part of our well-being. They can make the case for reduced anxiety and how it creates a sense of belonging that combats loneliness, how even just being a spectator of art can lower our blood pressure. I'll leave that to them, to do that better than I can. But I work in the space of non-clinical art therapeutics, and I speak from my lived experience as a patient and these past 7 years of directing my program as a witness to the transformative power of the arts. What I've seen is that many cancer patients feel called to be creative. They have relayed to me that before their diagnosis, they never even thought about being creative, but afterwards, they felt this overwhelming need to paint, to draw, to do crafts. I've seen armed forces veterans who love to come together to create, who use creativity in addition to other therapies to help them overcome PTSD. In our workshops, we had a veteran whose counselor reported to me that their patient had been isolated for years, even well before the pandemic. And they had started to become increasingly more paranoid. They had been working in therapy to help this person to slowly integrate back into society. And something sparked in this person, and they decided to attend our bi-weekly art workshops where we created together. We do not process or talk, but after just a few short months, this veteran slowly started going out of their house more and more. And now they're volunteering to give back and be more involved in society. And the counselor credits that to be in our workshops. It sparks something in this person. Being creative can spark us towards healing. I see aging adults who find community and being around an art table, talking side by side as they create. In a time when loneliness has been declared an epidemic here in the United States, we need places to gather. The art table is a wonderful place to do so. And honestly, our cultures all around the globe and our ancestors have known this and created that instinctively. We must be reminded of that and preserve the beauty and magic of the arts that have been part of us all along. What began for me as a way to grow past this health crisis has now grown into the very thing that makes me come alive. Remember that quote from earlier? The world needs us to do the work that makes us come alive. If that work is research or medicine or nursing or being an artist or a business owner or a community organizer, let's together do the work that makes us come alive. Let's make room for the arts and creativity and all that we do to preserve our humanity and help others on their way to healing. Thank you so much for having me here today.